The teasers dropped. The fandom went silent. In an instant, the entire K-pop world was turned upside down with a headline that read, "He barely survived what Pyo just told the police."
Yeah, and, a notification like that doesn't just ruin your day as a fan. It taps into a very specific, deeply ingrained historical anxiety about what goes on behind the scenes of this industry.
Exactly. When you see your ultimate bias in a headline with the words traffic accident, I mean, the panic is instantaneous. You're immediately wondering, wait, is the comeback delayed? Or, much worse, are they severely hurt?
Right, the worst-case scenario flashes right before your eyes.
It really does. So, welcome to Starscope K Report. Join Eric and Minji as they ride the Hallyu wave, uncovering the biggest K-pop comebacks, shocking industry controversies, and major K-drama updates. From internet-breaking rumors to historic chart milestones, we dive deep into the world of Korean entertainment.
And today on our deep dive, we are looking at the stark reality behind Block B member Pyo's recent accident in Jeju. But we aren't stopping at the police report, right?
No way! We are pulling back the curtain on the dark systemic history of K-pop transportation that makes a headline like this a literal worst nightmare scenario for fans. We're unpacking the extreme psychological and corporate pressures these stars endure long before they even step into a crosswalk.
It is such a critical conversation to have. When breaking news hits the internet, the line between factual reporting and wild speculation it vanishes in minutes.
Oh, totally.
So we have to look at the official timelines and, more importantly, the structural mechanics of the entertainment machine to understand why these incidents keep happening in the first place.
Let's start with the immediate incident that caused the massive K-Net's meltdown. So, Pyo Ji-hoon, was supposed to be on this relaxing vacation with acquaintances on Jeju Island.
Right, just a normal break.
Yeah, exactly. But reading through the police reports from the evening of July 19th, 2026, the situation changed drastically. At approximately 9:56 p.m. in Hallyu, Jeju City, Pyo was literally just crossing the street when he was struck by a vehicle.
And the police identified the individual behind the wheel as driver A. Immediately following the collision, a witness called 119. Paramedics arrived at the scene and transported Pyo to the emergency room of a general hospital right there in Jeju City.
And right there, the phrase transported to the ER, that is what triggers the massive fandom reaction. I was tracking the response online, and the emotion was just so raw.
Understandably so.
Definitely. But what struck me when reading the follow-up investigation from the Jeju police is that this wasn't some high-speed, reckless scandal. Driver A was not driving under the influence, and they didn't violate any traffic signals.
Right, it was just a standard pedestrian accident.
Yeah, it was, by all accounts, a completely standard, albeit really unfortunate, accident.
And the relief really came when his agency, artist company, finally released their official statement. They confirmed that Pyo sustained minor abrasions to his elbow and knee.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. While he naturally experienced some pain, there were no severe or life-threatening injuries. They assured the public he is recovering well and, honestly, will actually resume filming his scheduled projects next week without disruption.
Which is incredible. I mean, he's actively shooting, SBS's good partner too, and the massive Netflix hit Teach You a Lesson. He's essentially brushing off a car accident to get right back on set.
It says a lot about his work ethic.
For sure. But this brings up a crucial question. If the police confirmed it was a minor accident and the agency confirmed he just had scraped knees, why did the fandom instantly assume the absolute worst-case scenario? The internet reacted like the sky was falling.
Well, there's a reason for that.
It feels like K-pop fans have this collective trauma trigger whenever the words idol and car accident appear in the same sentence, you know? Why do we instantly panic even when an idol is just on vacation?
That trauma trigger is entirely justified, actually. When you look at the actuarial reality of idol transportation, the fear you're describing isn't an overreaction to Pyo's specific incident. It is a learned response to a deeply flawed logistical infrastructure.
Right. And speaking of flawed infrastructure, if you love staying updated on your favorites, make sure you're subscribed to Starscope K Report. We've got even bigger scoops ahead, and we are constantly breaking down the real stories behind the Hallyu wave.
Because we have to talk about manager driving. It's a massive issue.
Yes. I was reading through the Koreaboo expose featuring Gina Maeng, who is a former trainee that spent 12 years inside the K-pop machine. She detailed this phenomenon, and honestly, it completely shatters the illusion of the glamorous idol lifestyle.
Manager driving is the industry term for this acrobatic, highly reckless speeding used to transport idol groups between schedules. Gina Maeng recounted a really chilling detail in that expose.
Phone calls, right?
Yeah. receiving phone calls at 2 in the morning from two different idols, one male, one female. Both were in separate vehicles, calling her in a sheer panic, basically saying, I think I'm going to die in a car crash because we're driving so fast.
Calling your friend at 2 a.m. because you genuinely believe you are about to die on the highway? I mean, we need to look at the mechanism of why this happens. It's not because the managers inherently want to drive like stuntmen.
No, absolutely not. The pressure starts in the agency boardrooms.
Exactly. You have executives booking a group for an afternoon music show in Seoul, a university festival in Busan that evening, and then a radio appearance back in Seoul at midnight.
And geometrically, driving from Busan to Seoul takes roughly 4 hours under normal, safe conditions.
Right.
But agencies will routinely schedule these appearances just 2 hours apart. The executives know the travel times don't add up. They book them anyway, and the burden of bending time and space falls entirely onto the road managers.
Which is wild because these managers are often just in their early 20s themselves. They are sleep-deprived, running on energy drinks, and absolutely terrified of being fired by the label executives if their idols miss a stage time.
They're put in an impossible position.
They really are. They are weaving through highway traffic, literally prioritizing getting the group's flawless visuals onto the next stage over basic human survival. And that's not even the wildest part of this deep dive. Wait until you hear the terrifying industry secret behind why K-pop idols literally fear for their lives on the road.
Because if we look at the economics of this, it becomes even more stark. Agencies prioritize the revenue from appearance fees over safety because the math works in their favor.
What do you mean?
Well, Gina Maeng noted that companies simply do not care how many speeding tickets a manager racks up. The financial penalty of a traffic fine is negligible compared to the massive payout of a performance fee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, those fines are literally factored into the agency's operating budget as a standard cost of doing business.
So they are budgeting for illegal driving. That is so dark. But the true cost isn't a speeding ticket, it's human lives. We've seen minor crashes recently involving massive groups like Elia Seraphim, WJSN, and Verplas9, but the history isn't always minor.
No, it's not. The definitive tragedy that cemented this fear in the fandom's consciousness occurred in 2014 with the girl group Ladies Code.
Such a heartbreaking story.
It really is. Their manager was recklessly speeding in rainy conditions, trying to meet an impossible schedule. It resulted in a devastating fatal crash that claimed the lives of members Yoon B and Rise.
Yeah.
It was a moment that permanently altered how fans view idol transportation.
Which explains exactly why fans panicked over Pyo and Jeju. But looking at the mechanics of this, if manager driving is such a known, deadly secret, why don't the idols just speak up? I mean, if you were in a van going 100 miles per hour, why not just tell the driver to slow down or pull over?
Well, that assumes the idol has autonomy, which ignores the strict hierarchy of Korean corporate culture, especially within the trainee debt system. Rookies simply cannot afford to complain.
Right, because they don't have any leverage. It sounds like being strapped into a roller coaster you can't control, especially for rookies who have absolutely no voice or authority against their agencies. Getting off the ride means bankrupting your family.
Exactly. An idol spends years training, accumulating massive financial debt to the agency for housing, vocal lessons, and food. When they finally debut, the manager in that van isn't just a driver. They are an extension of the agency's supreme authority.
So if you complain, you're done.
Pretty much. If a rookie complains about safety, they are labeled as difficult, uncooperative, or ungrateful. They risk having their lines cut, their promotions halted, or their careers entirely shelved. So they grip the armrests and they endure the ride.
Wow. And later in this deep dive, we'll talk about a shocking plot twist in Pyo's early career that nobody saw coming, a medical misdiagnosis that almost forced him into a permanent hiatus. But really, enduring that lack of control brings us back to Pyo's overarching story, because his minor physical accident in Jeju is really just a blip compared to the extreme psychological and corporate warfare he survived during his early career.
Yeah, let's look at the timeline of that. Block B debuted in 2011. They were rookies trying to cement their place in a fiercely competitive market. Then, in February 2012, a massive controversy hit regarding an interview they did in Thailand.
I remember this. It was huge.
It was. They were heavily criticized for their behavior and for making what were perceived as disrespectful jokes regarding the devastating 2011 flooding disaster in Thailand.
The public backlash was immediate and severe. And it wasn't just standard internet criticism, you know. The pressure escalated to a highly organized petition circulating online, signed by thousands of netizens, explicitly calling for the members to apologize by committing suicide.
Which is horrifying.
Pyo was only 19 years old at the time. To wake up and read that your own public has mobilized to demand you end your life, I mean, the psychological weight of that is difficult to even comprehend, and it had a severe physical manifestation.
It did. On February 24th, 2012, the acute stress caused Pio to physically collapse. He fainted and was rushed to the hospital for shock. And then following his admission, the agency announced he had been diagnosed with stress-induced schizophrenia.
Which is crazy because a schizophrenia diagnosis is a massive, life-altering medical label. But diving into the source material, this diagnosis was immediately highly disputed, particularly by his own family.
Right. Pio's uncle, Pyo Ji-hoon, who actually has a professional medical background, publicly challenged the diagnosis. He pointed out the clinical flaws, noting that a true schizophrenia diagnosis requires symptoms to be continuously present for at least 6 months.
Yeah, it doesn't just happen overnight.
Exactly. He argued that assigning such a severe chronic psychiatric label after a sudden collapse was medically irresponsible. He suggested the symptoms were far more indicative of acute stress, brief psychotic disorder, or severe trauma.
It highlights just how reactionary the environment was. The industry pressure literally pushed him to a physical breaking point, and the medical response from the agency felt equally rushed and chaotic. But the danger for Block B wasn't just coming from public scrutiny. They were fighting a battle inside their own agency walls.
Which leads into the legal disputes with Stardom Entertainment. And looking at the public court filings from 2013, we can see exactly how the internal corporate structure was breaking down.
The legal battle is a matter of public record, and we are just looking at the facts here. In January 2013, Block B filed a lawsuit against Stardom Entertainment to nullify their exclusive contract. The core of their legal claim centered entirely on unpaid wages.
Yeah, the members reported to the Seoul Central District Court that they had not been paid their earnings for nearly a year, dating back to April 2011.
So they were working those grueling, highly dangerous schedules, enduring massive public hate, and legally claiming they weren't seeing a single one for their labor. But the lawsuit exposed a much darker financial mechanism regarding how trainee debt is handled.
It did. The members stated that the CEO of the agency, a Mr. Lee, had disappeared with 70 million Korean won, which was roughly 66,000 US dollars at the time.
And what makes this detail so significant is where that money actually came from. It wasn't agency revenue, it was collected directly from the members' parents.
This exposes the predatory nature of certain trainee contracts. Agencies often require parents to shoulder the upfront financial burden of dorms, coaches, and production costs, treating it as an investment or a loan required to secure their child's debut.
Right.
To take tens of thousands of dollars from the parents of the teenagers you were managing and then just vanish with those funds is a devastating breach of trust.
It is a complete structural failure, and it ended in utter tragedy. On May 20th, 2013, it was widely reported that the former CEO, Mr. Lee, had committed suicide. The entire situation was a labyrinth of corporate mismanagement, financial ruin, and immense personal tragedy for everyone involved. We're just reporting the historical facts here, but it's incredibly heavy.
It is, and when you lay out the timeline, the severe public backlash, the hospitalization, the unpaid wages, the vanished funds from their families, and the tragic death of their former CEO, you realize that Block B's early years were overshadowed by an incredibly dark cloud.
Yeah.
Most young artists would have walked away from the industry entirely.
Which is exactly why Pyo's trajectory from that point forward is so vital to understand. He didn't just survive the K-pop machine, he actively took control of his place within it. After the legal dust settled and the group transitioned to a new label, Pyo stepped up creatively to steer his own career.
He really transitioned from being a managed idol to a driving creative force. By April 2015, he helped form the first official Block B subunit, Basters, alongside B-Bomb and Yukwon.
Such a good subunit.
Oh, amazing. And he wasn't just performing, he was heavily involved in the production. For their debut mini-album, he secured lyrics credits on multiple tracks, including the highly successful title track, Conduct Zero. And he even took sole lyrics and composition credits for the song Charlie Chaplin.
To channel all of that industry chaos and personal trauma into writing and producing music that actively charted, I mean, that is the definition of reclaiming your power.
Absolutely.
And his momentum didn't stop at music. He honorably completed his mandatory military service, being discharged from the Marine Corps Band in September 2023. But his real masterstroke has been his transition into acting. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a KT update as we track Pyo's incredible ongoing journey, by the way, because it is wild.
Achieving crossover success as an idol actor is notoriously difficult, but Pyo built a highly legitimate foundation. He started in theater with his own troupe, Company Boy, before transitioning to television.
Right, he didn't skip steps.
Exactly. He didn't just land cameo roles. He secured integral parts in massive, globally recognized K-dramas.
The filmography is incredibly heavy-hitting. We're talking about Encounter, the massive supernatural hit Hotel de Luna, which was a literal cultural phenomenon, the intense Thriller Mouse, and the beloved series Yumi's Cells. Plus, his recent beloved role as Bong Gun-dae in Teach You a Lesson. He proved he isn't just an idol testing the waters, he is a seasoned, dual-threat entertainer.
Which brings us full circle to the present day. When you look at the entirety of his career, surviving a grueling trainee system, enduring extreme public hate campaigns, navigating predatory corporate structures, and successfully reinventing himself as a respected actor, the context of his Jeju accident shifts entirely.
It really does. At first glance, a headline about a car crash feels like a terrifying near miss. But digging into the sources, Pyo shrugging off minor abrasions on Jeju Island and calmly reporting back to the set of a major Netflix production the very next week, isn't just a sigh of relief, it's a testament to a level of endurance that most people can't even fathom.
Behind the glossy, highly polished exterior of the Hallyu wave, behind the perfectly synchronized choreography and the flawless music videos, is a very intense story of human resilience.
Right.
These artists are surviving literal physical dangers on the road due to impossible logistical demands, while simultaneously navigating the extreme psychological pressures of public scrutiny and corporate exploitation.
It completely changes how you view a simple music show performance or a new drama premiere. You aren't just watching a performer, you're watching a survivor of a deeply complex industry.
Yeah, that's exactly what they are. Survivors.
We've spent a lot of time today analyzing the literal physical dangers of manager driving on the highways, how agencies risk the lives of their staff and artists to meet impossible schedules because the economics allow it.
Right, because the fines are cheaper than missing a gig.
Exactly. But looking at everything Pyo endured in his early years, it raises a deeper question for you to mull over. Is the entire K-pop industry guilty of manager driving when it comes to the mental health and careers of these young idols, steering their lives at 100 miles per hour without brakes?
A very critical question to consider as you watch the next massive comeback unfold.
You've been listening to Star Scoop K-Report, where Eric and Minji bring you the stories shaping K-pop, K-dramas, and the global Hallyu wave. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.